And that's a big part of the happiness of a home life. So what God does is, he says, okay, now that we got the husband and wife thing, you know, kind of the one thing they need to do, now let's talk about parents, the one thing they need to do, and then kids, the one thing that they need to do. And so we find in Colossians 3 and verse 20, the one thing that parents are supposed to do. God says, look, encourage your kids. There's the one big thing. Encourage them. It says, parents, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. We need to encourage our kids. You know, every parent I know loves their kids. I've never had a parent say, I hate my children. Well, okay, I have, but they didn't mean it the moment they said it. Emotions, so they're like, okay, I really love them. And because they love their children, they want to provide for their needs. And they actually delight to do so. Then when it comes to physical needs, that's easy. Right? Food, probably need that. Shelter, probably need that. Clothes and wear, probably need that. Medical care, probably need that. That's easy. But what about the more important needs? What about the spiritual needs? What about the soul needs? Do we even know what the actual soul needs of our children are? Craig Hart is the chairman of the Division of Marriage, Family, and Human Development at Brigham Young University. For over a quarter of a century, he has observed and studied countless homes, countless parents interacting with children. And he kind of boils things down and he says, this is what every kid needs. The first thing they need is they need love. They just need love. They need a parent to tell them that they're valuable, that they're important. They need a parent to cultivate a sense of security. They need a parent to let them know that they have value, that they do good things so that the kids can be validated and get a good sense of identity. They need to receive love from their parents. The second thing that Dr. Hart says is they need limits. They've got to have boundaries. Here's what you cannot do, but here's where you cannot go. Here's what you cannot do. Every child needs limits. The third thing that he says is they need latitude. Especially as they get older, they need the freedom to begin making their own choices, because that's a very healthy part of becoming an independent, mature human being. They've got to learn how to make their own choices. And they need the freedom, in an age-appropriate way, to begin making choices on their own and living with the consequences of their own choices. So Dr. Hart just looks at it and says, as parents, we have to meet the spiritual, the heart, the soul needs of our kids. We got to fill them with love. You're of value. You're of secure. You're an important person. You do good things. They need to be loved. They need to have limits. Here are boundaries you cannot cross. And then they need to have latitude, freedom to make a certain amount of choices. And balancing those things is the art of parenting and meeting the needs of kids. But get this. Kids don't just need these things. Are you ready for this? They want them. They want them. Now, as they get older, they want to make you think they don't want these. But a kid needs to be loved. A kid needs to be validated. A kid needs to know that he or she is somebody. A kid needs to know that he or she is secure, that they have value. They need that. They need limits. You know what? I work with teenagers 6 months out of the year, coaching cross-country and coaching track. Let me tell you where this really comes into play. I have teenagers tell me things like this. My parents don't care enough to even want to know where I am. It's actually how they say it. Here's what else I hear. You know what? I did this thing and I feel horrible about it. Why did my parents let me do that? Why didn't they tell me if I did this I would fill in the blank of the consequence? It's a child expressing the fact that they need limits because they're still figuring so much out. Now, what they don't know is adults, we're still trying to figure things out too, aren't we? But they have even less figured out than we do. And you know what? They need latitude. At some point, they've got to be given more and more freedom to be able to make their own choices as they forge their own identity. They have to have that. And get this, when we do not provide the appropriate amount of love, when we don't provide righteous kind of limits, when we do not give them appropriate amounts of latitude, what it does in the spirit of a child is it irks them. It frustrates them. It violates Colossians 3:21. It says, parents, do not embitter your children. That word means to irk, to irritate, because something that needs to be done isn't getting done. And when our kids don't receive that kind of love and they don't have healthy kinds of limits, or they're not given the appropriate type of latitude, it just is so irritating and so frustrating that after a while they just want to lose heart. They get mad. Really mad. I'm a dog person. I really like dogs. I don't know that I've ever met a dog that I don't like. But I was home one 4th of July for a family reunion, and my sisters and brothers-in-law and we were playing a game of badminton. And my mom and dad at the time had a little dog named Dusty. I actually liked Dusty. But somehow when we were playing that game of badminton, Dusty decided that I needed to be herded because that was actually the instinct of the dog. Just me. And so when I'm playing, Dusty's always at my feet, barking, nipping at my heels, and I'm like, come on, leave me alone. I'm trying to play the game, and the dog is just always there. And it kind of went on for like 10 minutes, and the longer it went on, the more irritated I got with that dog. And I went from liking dogs and loving Dusty and his mom and dad's dog to 10 minutes later going, if I could find a way to shoot that dog in the head, I'd do it right now. It's so irritating. I remember at one point I was going for a birdie, and he bit me, and he just nipped me right in the heel, and I kind of stopped, turned around, and I kicked my parents' dog. And I mean, he weighed like 8 pounds. So it was like, woo, you know, woo, 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 you know. And there's my dad looking at me with the look I had seen many times growing up. And I felt horrible, but it was like I was provoked. I was just so irritated. That dog just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. It irked me so bad I just reacted. That's what kids will do when they're not given a sufficient degree of love or righteous limits or age-appropriate latitude. And you know what God does? God looks at parents and says, don't do that. Don't do that and go, you just need to learn how to do what I say. Say, no, parents. Don't embitter your kids, or you know what? They'll lose heart. That word there that says become discouraged literally means without spirit. They lose heart. They look at home and they make a conclusion. This is not a place for me to get nurtured. This is not a place for me to learn where life needs to get done. And some of them will show that outwardly and wear it on their sleeve, and they come all rebellious and all that kind of stuff. And some of them will comply on the outside, but on the inside they just see them, can't wait till they're gone. But they've lost heart that this home is a nurturing place where they can really learn how to do life right. God says, please don't do that, Mom and Dad. Please don't do that.